I stare at the wheelchair ramp I'd spent 6 months saving for, the one that would finally make our new house accessible for Brandon. The contractor just finished installing it yesterday. $30,000 of careful budgeting, overtime video editing jobs, and sacrifice. Also, my husband could wheel himself in and out of our dream home with dignity. Now he sits across from me at our kitchen table, casually explaining why he won't be moving in after all. Sophia understands me in ways you never could, Lydia, he says, his hands folded neatly in his lap. She sees me as a man, not just someone who needs taking care of. The words hit like ice water. Sophia, his physical therapist. The one I'd trusted to help him recover after the accident. The one who's apparently been doing much more than professional care. I see. My voice comes out steady, surprising even me. And how long has Sophia been? Understanding you. Brandon adjusts his glasses, a nervous tic I used to find endearing. That's not important. What matters is we've found something real. Something passionate. Our son's drawings cover the refrigerator behind him. Stick figures of our family holding hands. Brandon always drawn with giant wheels instead of legs. Theo's only 5. He won't understand why Daddy's leaving us for the pretty therapist who brings him lollipops after sessions. Passionate. I repeat, tasting the bitterness of the word. Like when I spent 2 years rebuilding our life after your accident. When I carried you to bed every night before we could afford the lift. When I worked 3 jobs so you could have the best care. That's exactly what I mean, he sighs, as if I'm proving his point. You see me as this burden, this project. Sophia sees the real me. I want to scream. I want to flip the table. I want to tell him about the nights I cried myself to sleep, terrified I wasn't doing enough, being enough. Instead, I stand up slowly, walking to the window. The ramp gleams in the afternoon sun, a monument to my foolishness. I'll have my lawyer contact you, Brandon says to my back. I think it's best if I move in with Sophia directly. She has a ground floor apartment. Of course she does. How convenient. I turn around, meeting his eyes. You know what, Brandon? You're right. I never saw the real you. Because the man I married wouldn't do this to his family. He wheels backward, already retreating. I hope we can keep this civil for Theo's sake. Civil. The word echoes in my mind as he leaves, the front door closing with a soft click. Civil isn't what I'm feeling. Not even close. Eleanor's hands shake as she pours the tea, spilling drops onto her pristine tablecloth. I've never seen my mother-in-law this angry in 15 years of knowing her. That ungrateful little. She sets the teapot down with enough force to make the china rattle. After everything you've done for him. Everything we've all done. Henry sits quietly at the end of the table, his weathered hands clasped together. He hasn't said much since I arrived, but the disappointment etches deep lines around his mouth. I should have seen it coming, I say, stirring honey into my cup. The late-night therapy sessions. The way he'd shut his laptop whenever I walked into the room. Don't you dare blame yourself, Eleanor snaps. Brandon's father and I raised him better than this. Didn't we, Henry? Henry clears his throat. The accident changed him, but not in the way we thought. The accident. 18 months ago, when Brandon's car slid off an icy bridge, we'd all assumed the trauma had brought us closer together. Now I wonder if it just gave him the perfect excuse to check out of our marriage. He's moving in with her, I tell them. Today. To her ground floor apartment. Eleanor's teacup clatters against its saucer. That witch. She probably planned this from the start. Young thing like that, preying on a vulnerable patient. Eleanor, Henry warns softly. No, I won't be quiet about this. She turns to me, her eyes fierce. The house is in your name, isn't it? The new one. I nod. We hadn't completed the purchase yet. Just paid the deposit. Good. Let him try to claim half of that after what he's done. She reaches across the table, gripping my hand. We're behind you, dear. Whatever you need. The support nearly breaks me. I've been holding it together for Theo's sake, but here, in this familiar kitchen where we used to have Sunday dinners as a family, the weight of it all crashes down. I don't know how to tell Theo, I whisper. He adores his father. Henry finally speaks up, his voice gentle but firm. Brandon will have to face that consequence himself. You focus on protecting yourself and my grandson. A text buzzes on my phone. Brandon's name appears on the screen, Sophia and I need the house keys. Coming by in an hour to get my things. Eleanor reads the message over my shoulder and makes a sound like an angry cat. Oh, he's bringing her to the house now? Henry, get the car keys. Eleanor. No arguments. We're going over there with Lydia. She stands, smoothing her cardigan with trembling hands. It's time our son remembered who he's dealing with. I stare at my fierce mother-in-law, and for the first time since Brandon's announcement, I feel something other than pain. Something that feels dangerously close to hope. Brandon's laptop holds more secrets than I expected. While he and Sophia pack his things downstairs, I sit in our home office, scrolling through emails I shouldn't have access to. But he always was careless with passwords, using Theo's birthday for everything. The first revelation hits like a punch to the gut: joint bank accounts I never knew existed. Credit card statements showing hotel charges from months ago. Dinner receipts for two at places we used to call our spots. Find anything interesting? I jump at Eleanor's voice. She stands in the doorway, keeping watch while Henry runs interference downstairs. More than interesting. I turn the screen toward her. Look at these transfers. He's been moving money since before the accident. Eleanor leans closer, her lips pressing into a thin line. That's your savings. The money for Theo's education. And the accessible house fund. My fingers tighten on the mouse. He's been funneling it to a separate account for months, planning his escape while I worked overtime to build our future. A crash sounds from downstairs, followed by Sophia's high-pitched laugh. The sound makes my skin crawl. I trusted her, I whisper. Invited her into our home. She sat at our dinner table, talking about Brandon's progress while they were. Save everything. Eleanor interrupts, her voice steel-sharp. Every email, every transaction. Henry's friend Marcus is still practicing law. He specializes in divorce cases. I start forwarding emails to myself, hands trembling. Then I spot something that makes my blood run cold. A rental agreement for an apartment in Sophia's name, dated 3 months before the accident. Eleanor, I breathe. Look at this date. She reads over my shoulder, her gasp telling me she's reached the same conclusion I have. That manipulative little. She grabs my arm. Lydia, this means. It wasn't an accident. The words taste like ash. He was planning to leave even then. The crash just gave him a better story. Poor disabled husband, finding comfort with his caring therapist. Footsteps on the stairs. I quickly close the laptop as Brandon wheels into view, Sophia hovering behind him like a vulture. What are you doing in my office? His tone carries an edge I've never heard before. I meet his gaze steadily. Just gathering some work files. I'm a bit behind on deadlines, what with all the recent changes. Sophia steps forward, all fake sympathy. We can handle the rest ourselves, Lydia. This must be so difficult for you. I stand, clutching the laptop to my chest. You have no idea how difficult things are about to get. Brandon's eyes narrow at my words, but I'm already walking past them, Eleanor at my side. Let them wonder what I found. Let them worry, because now I know the truth. And truth, I'm learning, is the sharpest weapon of all. Marcus spreads the evidence across his mahogany desk like playing cards in a losing hand. Bank statements, emails, the rental agreement, all proving Brandon's deception started long before his accident. In most cases, Marcus says, adjusting his reading glasses, this would be straightforward. But Brandon's disability complicates things. How? Eleanor demands from the chair beside me. He planned this before the accident. Lydia has proof. Marcus holds up the rental agreement. Which makes the timing suspicious, yes. But any halfway decent lawyer will paint Brandon as a vulnerable victim led astray by his therapist. They'll claim Sophia took advantage of his post-accident emotional state. While he took advantage of our savings, I say quietly, what about Theo's college fund? That's where it gets interesting. Marcus pulls out another document. Brandon's name isn't on these newer accounts. They're in Sophia's name, with him listed as a beneficiary. The implication hits me hard. Not just an affair, but calculated financial manipulation. I think of all those nights I worked late editing videos, believing I was securing our future. My phone buzzes, a text from Brandon. Theo keeps asking when he can visit my new place. Sophia suggested we take him to the zoo this weekend. The casual cruelty of it steals my breath. He's not even trying to hide Sophia's role anymore. What are my options? I ask Marcus, my voice steadier than I feel. We can fight for full custody, citing moral character and financial impropriety. But he removes his glasses, cleaning them slowly. Brandon might retaliate by claiming you're denying him access due to his disability. Courts are sensitive to that. So he gets to destroy our family and walk away with everything? Not everything, Eleanor interjects. Tell her about the trust, Marcus. Marcus nods. Your in-laws are willing to testify about Brandon's pre-accident plans. More importantly, Henry's family trust, the one that's been paying Brandon's medical bills, has conditions about moral conduct. I turn to Eleanor, understanding dawning. The trust can be revoked? Modified, she corrects. We can't cut him off entirely, he's still our son. But we can ensure those funds protect Theo's future instead of financing Brandon's new life. My phone buzzes again. This time it's Sophia, just trying to make this easier for everyone. Theo should get to know me better. Something shifts inside me, like a key turning in a lock. I think of Theo's innocent face, of Brandon's calculated betrayal, of Sophia's presumption. Do it, I tell Marcus. All of it. The custody fight, the trust modification, everything. It won't be easy, he warns. Or quick. I stand, gathering the evidence of my husband's betrayal. Neither was carrying him up the stairs every night for 6 months. But I did that too. Eleanor squeezes my hand as we leave Marcus's office, and I realize I'm finally ready for war. The notification from my banking app stops me cold. A series of large withdrawals, all within the last hour. My hands shake as I scroll through the transactions, watching our joint accounts drain in real time. I dial Brandon's number, but it goes straight to voicemail. Of course it does. He's always been methodical, even in betrayal. My laptop pings with an email from an unfamiliar address. The subject line reads, "Financial records, urgent." Inside, I find detailed spreadsheets showing every penny Brandon and Sophia have siphoned away over the past year. The sender's name makes my heart skip. Jessica Chen, Sophia's former roommate. I thought you should see this, Jessica's note reads. Sophia's done this before. Different man, same playbook. The doorbell rings. Through the window, I spot Henry's car in the driveway. He's early for our meeting with Marcus, but something about his posture sets off alarm bells. I open the door to find him alone, his face ashen. Brandon's filing for emergency custody of Theo, he says without preamble. Claims you're unstable, obsessed with revenge. Sophia's willing to testify. The world tilts sideways. He can't. He already has. Their lawyer filed this morning. Henry's hands clench. Eleanor's at the courthouse now, trying to get more information. My phone buzzes again. Another bank alert. This time it's Theo's college fund, the one I thought was safely separate. Somehow they've gained access. I have something, I tell Henry, pulling up Jessica's email. Proof that Sophia's done this before. She's a con artist, targeting disabled men for their money. Henry reads quickly, his expression darkening. This helps, but Brandon's lawyer will say you obtained it illegally. We need. My phone rings. Eleanor. They're at Theo's school, she says without greeting. Brandon and Sophia. They're trying to pick him up early. The room spins. I grab my keys, already moving. They can't. I have primary custody during the week. The emergency filing changes things, Henry says, following me to the car. Until the hearing. I don't care about the hearing. The words explode out of me. They're not taking my son. As we speed toward the school, another email arrives. This one's from Brandon. You forced my hand, Lydia. I warned you not to fight this. Attached is a video clip, security footage from our old house. Me, screaming at Brandon during our last fight, throwing his medications across the room in fury. Carefully edited to remove his taunts, his cruel words about my age, my dedication, my sacrifices. Perfect timing, I whisper, understanding hitting like a physical blow. He's been planning this all along. Henry touches my arm. We'll fight this. But I'm already seeing the bigger picture. Every move I've made to protect myself and Theo has played right into their hands. And now I have to decide, keep fighting and risk losing everything, or find another way to win this war. The emergency custody hearing feels like a carefully orchestrated play, with me cast as the unstable villain. I sit alone on my side of the courtroom while Brandon, Sophia, and their lawyer present a united front across the aisle. Even Marcus called in sick today, sending a junior associate I've never met. Your Honor, Brandon's lawyer says, we have evidence of Mrs. Watson's escalating behavior. She plays the edited security footage. The courtroom watches me throw those pills, my face contorted with rage. No context. No explanation. Sophia takes the stand next, her voice trembling with rehearsed concern. I've tried so hard to make peace for Theo's sake, but she's become unpredictable, dangerous even. I want to scream that she's lying, that this whole thing is a setup. Instead, I grip the edge of my seat until my knuckles turn white. And the financial records? Brandon's lawyer continues. Show a pattern of erratic spending and unauthorized account access. The judge reviews the documents. My desperate attempts to protect our assets twisted into something sinister. Each page turn feels like another nail in my coffin. Mrs. Watson, the judge finally addresses me. These are serious allegations. Do you have any evidence to counter these claims? I start to mention Jessica's email, but our junior associate subtly shakes his head. Inadmissible. Obtained illegally. Just as Henry warned. My voice cracks. I've only tried to protect my son. By emptying joint accounts. Brandon interrupts. By turning my own parents against me. The judge silences him, but the damage is done. I look around the courtroom, searching for Eleanor or Henry, but they're not here. Their absence feels like another betrayal until I remember. They're watching Theo, keeping him safe while his future hangs in the balance. Given the evidence presented, the judge begins, and my heart stops. I'm granting temporary primary custody to Mr. Watson, effective immediately. The room spins. Through my tears, I see Sophia squeeze Brandon's shoulder, triumphant. Mrs. Watson will have supervised visitation twice weekly, pending a full psychological evaluation, and I don't hear the rest. Can't hear anything over the roaring in my ears. Supervised visitation. Like I'm dangerous. Like I'm the threat. Brandon wheels toward me as the courtroom clears. This could have been easier, he says softly. You should have just let me go. I stare at this stranger in my husband's body. This man I once carried upstairs and bathed and loved, and something inside me breaks. Or maybe it crystallizes. You think you've won? My voice is barely a whisper. You think I'll just disappear? Sophia appears at his side, all false sympathy. Come on, Brandon. Theo's waiting. My son's name on her lips ignites something cold and clear within me. They've taken my money, my reputation, and now my child. But they've forgotten one thing. I have nothing left to lose. Jessica Chen's testimony echoes through the silent courtroom. Each word strips away Sophia's carefully constructed facade, revealing a pattern of deception spanning 3 states and 4 previous victims. She approached me about Brandon Watson 8 months before his accident. Jessica says, her voice steady. She had his schedule, his finances, everything mapped out. She called it her retirement plan. I watch Brandon's face as his world collapses. He grips his wheelchair's armrests, knuckles white, while Sophia's lawyer frantically objects. We have bank records, Marcus continues, showing Miss Porter's systematic targeting of disabled men across multiple jurisdictions. The FBI is particularly interested in the insurance fraud aspect. Sophia stands abruptly. This is ridiculous. Brandon, tell them. Sit down, the judge orders. She does, but her mask has slipped. I see calculation behind the panic in her eyes. The courtroom doors open. Eleanor and Henry enter with Theo, right on cue. My son runs to me, and I lift him onto my lap, breathing in his familiar scent. What's happening, Mommy? He whispers. Justice, I whisper back. Brandon wheels forward. Lydia, please. I didn't know. You have to believe. Actually, I cut him off. I don't have to believe anything anymore. I turn to Marcus. Show them the last piece. The courthouse screen flickers to life. Security footage plays. Not from our house this time, but from Brandon's office parking garage. The night of his accident. Sophia's car following his, too close. The slight swerve that sent him over the barrier. No, Brandon breathes. That's not. She wouldn't. Insurance payout, Marcus explains clinically. Plus a vulnerable victim primed for manipulation during recovery. Her signature move, according to Miss Chen. Sophia bolts for the door, but security's already there. As they lead her away, she locks eyes with me. You think you're so clever, she hisses. But he still chose me over you. No, I reply calmly. You chose him. And that was your mistake. Brandon reaches for Theo, but our son shrinks away, burying his face in my shoulder. The gesture says more than hours of testimony could. The court reverses its previous custody ruling. The judge announces. Mrs. Watson will retain primary custody. Mr. Watson, given your unwitting involvement in Miss Porter's schemes, you'll be granted supervised visitation pending. I stop listening. Hold Theo closer. Feel Eleanor's hand on my shoulder and Henry's quiet presence behind us. Family. Real family. Brandon catches my eye one last time. I'm sorry, he mouths. I nod. Not in forgiveness, but in acknowledgement. Because revenge, I've learned, isn't about destroying your enemies. Sometimes it's simply about surviving them and emerging stronger on the other side. The wheelchair ramp gleams in the morning sun, but it's not the one I saved for all those months ago. This one leads to a smaller house, chosen by me, paid for by me. Through the window, I watch Theo showing Eleanor his new treehouse plans while Henry sketches modifications to make it accessible for everyone. My phone buzzes, Brandon's weekly check-in about visitation. I let it go to voicemail. He'll have his supervised time with Theo tomorrow, but today is for us. The doorbell rings. Jessica Chen stands on my porch, looking nervous. I'm flying out tonight, she says. Back to California. The FBI wants me to testify against Sophia in another case. Thank you, I tell her. For everything. She shakes her head. I should have come forward sooner. With the others. You came forward when it mattered. Inside, Theo's laughter mingles with Eleanor's. The sound fills spaces I thought would stay hollow forever. Mrs. Watson? Jessica hesitates. There's something else. Brandon called me yesterday. He's starting a support group for fraud victims. Wants to help other people avoid what happened to him. The information settles like a stone in still water, creating ripples I'm not ready to measure. Good for him, I say and mean it. My laptop chimes with a new editing project notification. My business has grown. Turns out there's a market for editors who understand trauma and recovery. Life has a way of transforming pain into purpose. Mommy, Theo calls. Grandpa says we can put a zip line in the treehouse. Absolutely not, Eleanor counters, but she's laughing. I turn back to Jessica. Would you like to stay for lunch? We're celebrating. What's the occasion? I glance at the ramp, remembering how it once represented everything I'd lost. Now it's just part of a home built on my own terms. New beginnings, I tell her. And old wisdom. She looks confused, but follows me inside. On my desk, next to family photos and client contracts, sits a small frame. Inside is a fortune cookie message from that first terrible dinner after Brandon left. The best revenge is not being like your enemy. I used to think it meant staying moral, staying clean in your pursuit of justice. Now I understand. True revenge is rebuilding something beautiful from the ashes of betrayal. Not because it hurts your enemies, but because it heals you. Theo runs to hug me, his arms fierce and sure. Through the window, I spot Brandon's car driving past, his weekly reconnaissance, checking on the life he threw away. But for the first time, I don't feel anger or triumph. I feel free.